Well, good morning, Dean Brian. It's good to see you, and I apologize.
Morning.
I apologize for interrupting you on your sabbatical vacation time, but I thought it would be helpful to get some perspective on the experiences that you've had most recently. As you know, earlier this week, the CDC has invited us to consider masking ourselves, even those of us who are vaccinated, because of the rise of the Delta variant of the COVID-19 virus. And I know that you've had some experience recently about that. So I thought that it would be helpful, given your experience and the people in our diocese respect you and know you, and it would be good to have a conversation with you about your experience. So tell us what happened.
Absolutely. It was, I was on vacation in the latter part of June, the beginning part of July, before taking a couple of weeks of sabbatical. And we were out east initially, so at the beach, but not doing anything inside. In particular, we were being cautious, but not, as vaccinated people do. We weren't masking, and felt pretty safe in doing that. And so we weren't taking any kind of crazy risks. And through that the first week, we were just fine. And the second week, we went to St. Louis, which we knew was a COVID hotspot, actually, with the Delta variant. And again, mostly what we were doing was outdoors, if we were doing it at all, and confined to our family. But we had one particular thing that we did. We went to the St. Louis Zoo, and we're inside in an indoor display, and that would be my best guess as to where we contracted COVID. We were inside for probably about 10 to 15 minutes, but in a very warm, very humid environment, and lots and lots of people who had been milling around for some time. And we came home, and that, for me, the symptoms simply presented as initially as a cold, and I spiked a fever for a couple of days. And then on the overnight, on the second into the third day, I noticed that I had lost my sense of smell. And that was the tip that said I really needed to go get tested for COVID. And I got online and did one of those COVID symptom checkers for those who had been vaccinated, and I ticked 7 out of the 10 boxes. So I was pretty sure by the time I went for testing that I had it. And sure enough, they called me back within an hour and said, absolutely, I had COVID. And thus began the 10-day quarantine in the middle of my vacation, which is, by the way, no fun. And so, the good news about that was that I was really in no way worried that I was going to be hospitalized. I wasn't particularly worried that it was going to get much worse. But for a while, I couldn't taste or smell anything. I felt horrible. Mine, as I said, presented as a really bad cold. And by that, I mean, I had a fever for 4 or 5 days. I just felt really lousy and had trouble breathing for a while. And trouble sleeping, therefore, and so my sleep schedule was just thrown way off. And then Tamison also was then diagnosed with it. Hers presented much differently than mine, but we were able to put 2 and 2 together after a couple of days, and she went for testing, and sure enough, she had it. But the 2 takeaways that I have from COVID are, first of all, in quarantine, even within our own house, Tamison was living upstairs and I was living downstairs for 10 days. And that's a very difficult thing to do. And very isolating, very lonely, actually. But that, as I said, we were not particularly concerned about the deterioration of our health based upon what we knew about those who had been vaccinated who then contracted COVID. But what did concern us was, prior to our being symptomatic, like the day we became symptomatic, we had close contact with some friends, one of whom was not vaccinated because she's too young. And we lived just in dread that we might possibly have shared our infection with that person. And so for several days, we said our prayers and hoped our best hopes that we had not transmitted the disease to somebody else who obviously would have experienced it in a much worse form than we did. So that is our experience. And after our 10-day quarantine, we were both feeling fine. We recovered pretty fully. I have most of my sense of smell back. I can now taste things again, which is good too. So,
well, thank you, Dean Ryan, for sharing your experience. As you know, the CDC has sort of reintroduced the idea of masking even for those persons who are vaccinated in indoor spaces. And one of the things that we're hoping to be able to do is to send out a podcast that was done by Dr. Greg Poland at Mayo Clinic, who has also said that given the high transmissibility of the Delta variant, that all those persons who are vaccinated, he's suggesting wear masks inside. Obviously outside, distance, et cetera, is a whole different question. But right. We're going to send that information out along to our clergy and lay leaders so that they can consider how best to implement this advice from the CDC in our particular contexts, because every one of our contexts is different, but we wanted to at least encourage people to listen to the podcast, have this conversation with you, and then read the material on the CDC, and then also look at the coronavirus dashboard here in Indiana. Some of our counties are not spiking at all, and other counties are. So we want to be attentive to that as well. Yeah,
I will be wearing a mask indoors for some time now. I think, in the grand scheme of things that you think are never going to happen to you, we were not inside for very long in a situation like that, and have learned firsthand that this is an extraordinarily contagious variant. And again, the concern for me as a leader, as a Christian, is it comes out of 1 Corinthians, right, where we are really urged strongly by Paul to look out for the best interest of the other. And he's unequivocal about that. And that, to me, is the metric for how we are to care for one another in community. And so masking indoors right now, to me, just seems imperative. First of all, because the vaccination rate in Indiana still is around 50%. It's not great. And so the assumption that everybody in our sphere is vaccinated is not true.
Correct.
And secondly, because the breakthrough infection happens so easily, I don't know that it remains to be seen what the statistics are about the breakthrough and how contagious people really are with the Delta variant and now apparently with the Lambda variant that's beginning to show up too.
I think you said it best. The reason we're masking is not for our sakes. It's really for the sake of the other, right?
Exactly.
And we live in a state where I think right now the statewide fully vaccinated is hovering around the high 30s or low 40%. But we still have a significant portion of our population, also young people, who are not able to get the vaccine yet.
Right.
And we don't want anything to happen to them. We want to safeguard them. And so it's out of concern for the other, loving the other, living the way of love for the other, that we are taking these steps. So
Exactly.
So thank you so much for this time with you on your vacation sabbatical time. And please give our best to Tamison as well. And we look forward to seeing you back when you're feeling a bit better, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Blessings.
God bless.
Bye-bye.